Hi, has any of your previous interviewees had a shower installed specifically in their office for this interview? Visible?
Oh my goodness, it looks perfect. I can see that lovely shower head there above yours. And
And
the
even the,
corona, amazing.
the taps, they're there too.
Yeah. I'm tapping into it right now. It looks
Okay,
perfect. Very professional.
good. There we go.
Okay. Firstly, I just want to
What about the
welcome.
distance? Am I well positioned here?
You are well
Difficult.
positioned. It's just that you're below your nose, you cut
Exactly,
off.
that's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I hide the shower head.
I
Okay,
think,
there it is.
yeah,
What about that?
I think that works nicely. I like the
Okay,
balance.
good. Yeah.
Artwork. So firstly, I just want to welcome all the viewers to STORTKOP Confessions. This is episode 14 already. It's the last one that I'm doing as part of launching the show. So thank you to everybody who's watching this. Today, I am very excited and just very privileged to be joined by one of South Africa's most amazing artists. In my view, he's a musician, songwriter, singer, artist, just an all-round amazing musician, Jannie du Toit. So welcome, Jannie, to the show, and thank you so much for being part of it. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, well, I have been practicing for 60 years, so high time that I get into the high echelons, I suppose.
Exactly. I just think it's so amazing how like the professionals are in the shower, you know, like here we are talking about life and things and pandemic and everything. But before we get there, Jannie, please tell all the viewers about your career, where it started, and what you've been building up for yourself over a time span of what has it been, 50 years, 60 years, that you're actually busy
Yeah,
celebrating that now recently on CakeNet. But please tell us everything
yeah.
that you've been doing up until right before the
I
pandemic.
started playing the guitar in
Yes,
1968. That
yes,
makes it, yes, something like 50 plus years, of course. I've
yeah.
been playing the guitar and the piano. I write a lot on piano. But then in 1971, I was on the radio and I was on a public stage. So I view that year 71 as my first step in let's say professional music, in singing, in doing everything I do. Love writing. I love language. I love music, and the two come together in a song, of course, and most
Yes.
ideally, and hopefully there's a happy marriage between music and language. I believe in that. I believe that that's the only way I would like to see it coming from myself. I decided some 30 years ago that I actually like singing. It's the singing that I like so much. I like writing. I have done a lot. I've actually written a few musicals in the 80s, mostly, well, no, at all times, writing in my mother tongue, which is Afrikaans. But performing, of course, when you play in a rock band in the early 70s, it would have been English mostly. But we then also started a folk group. We sang some folk stuff, and I was at the then Rand Afrikaans University here in Johannesburg,
Yeah.
and I got the opportunity to play with a rock band but also a folk group. And the folk group used to perform at Mangles. Now we're going to have to talk to senior members of our audience now. Dave
Yes.
Marks ran the most beautiful, lovely folk club that I ever performed in Braamfontein in those years.
Yeah.
Just right in the middle of Wits and RAU at the time. So there were lots of students around, and it was in the time of folk. Folk was the thing to do. And our group, we had a group called Trilogie,
Yeah.
wrote our own songs in Afrikaans, but also obviously sang the music of, in the first place, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Uh,
We started out as a trio, and then a fourth member was added, but we liked the name Trilogie too much, so we didn't change it to quartet or something. We just kept it at Trilogie,
mm-hmm.
and we would perform all over. We were on in 1975 the test broadcasts, the first test broadcasts of SATV. You would see Trilogie quite a number of times, but then often in a place like Mangles, we would also perform the music that we really were inspired by, such as the Beatles and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and the Dylans and all the rest. I knew that is what I really would like to do, but I didn't study music at the time. It was not like today, where you could go to a place without like finishing a proper education in music at school and then move on. You would have to do that to be able to move on to university and do proper studies in music. So I was actually a bit sad that I didn't have the background of a full classical training. I stopped piano in standard 8 when Mr. Lutz told me, listen, if you don't want to practice, then this is what it's going to be like. You're not going to make it. So although I did quite well with my oral tests, the practical, the performance side was not very good on the piano. Perhaps I realize now that was not a bad thing, because I might have ended up, I think I'm quite talented, I might have ended up being, a classical pianist. And then you rehearse all day long. You must practice hours and hours on end, and that takes you away from doing your own thing. So perhaps it was a very good thing that Mr. Lutz said to me, that's not a good idea. And not too long after that, obviously, I got my first guitar. I went with a friend of mine in Pretoria by the name of Dewald Meyer at Menlo Park, where I went to high school. And I remember we took the bus to the town. There was a place called Metro Cycle House. And we both bought ourselves guitars at 7 rands a piece.
Yes.
Mine was the brown one. Dewald's was the blue one. The blue one wouldn't stay in tune. The brown one stayed in tune.
Okay.
So I could go on with my endeavors. And I will never forget the smell of that first guitar, the wood. I mean, you've got it still today, but just that smell of your first guitar was fantastic. And I started, well, obviously most of us teach ourselves. Today we have certainly YouTube where you can look at other guys doing it, but we had to sort of find our way mostly ourselves. I did do a month of classes with a wonderful guitarist here in Johannesburg, Colin Shapiro. He was one of the big guys of the folk scene in Johannesburg at the time. And then it was the end of our studies, and Trilogie went apart. I know one guy, he went down to KwaZulu-Natal, to Margate, where his folks live, and Andy Lubber went to Nelspruit. He started the Inibos Festival in 2004, highly successful. He was, just the most amazing vocalist, and he understood harmonies. That's why we ended up being really a very good harmony setup. We would do 4-part harmonies. We would really, to the T, sing Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, but do really good harmonies to our own compositions at the time. In 1976, we got an honorary mention prize in the American Song Festival of that year, which obviously does give one some heart. You feel, I found out from EMI at the time, it was a guy at EMI, trying to remember his name now, who entered us into the American Song Festival, and it was clear that this was the only Afrikaans entrant. And there was a lot of songs that would be entered on a yearly basis. Ernest Schroeder. And he told us that that year there was only one successful South African entrant, and that was Trilogie, an Afrikaans song. And we were so honored, and we were, as I say, that's something that like that at an early age. We were like early 20s, mid 20s perhaps. And when something like that happens, and you ah, and you, that thing will stop ringing at some stage.
Domme.
Uh, and you also get onto TV, even when there was hardly TV. There was no TV before that. The
Yeah.
first test broadcasts started July 2019,
Yeah.
mid-July 1975. And
Yes.
in that 6 months of the test broadcasts, we were on television quite a number of times.
Wow.
Although we then went apart, I had in me the feeling that there might be a possibility of making a career out of music. I went on with my legal studies, finished an LB, and also did my articles in law. But there came a sort of a movement. It was called a movement in Afrikaans music called Musiek en Lyriek,
Dis
with the likes of Lorica and Anton Goosen, Connie de Villiers, and some others. Actually, some absolutely wonderful music. And I heard that at Mangles for the first time, let's say in 1973, when
Yeah.
some folks, either Afrikaans or English, would come to us and say, wow, if Afrikaans music can sound like this, then I think I might start listening. And that I heard a lot of times in that time of the Musiek en Lyriek movement. And more, I thought, wow, I wish I could have a career, and obviously prayed for that as well. I'm a firm believer, and it happened. At the right time came the opportunity. I finished my article, so I am an admitted attorney from early 80s,
Yeah.
but I just decided that I'm going to go away from law. I stopped that, and I just looked out, and then a wonderful opportunity came my way. Nothing else but a miracle right from heaven. I got offered a post at Pretoria University, where I
Yeah.
wrote some musicals. Those musicals I was referring to. So now I had to go sit down and write for a bass guitar, write for, well, the bass, of course, it's a light music guy. You can just show me, listen, I think more or less this. I was by the way, a bass player in the rock band in the early, and pop band in the early 70s. So
Okay.
I had a sort of an idea, but obviously I got a much better bassist than myself, and he could go ahead and do what he wanted. But I would then write for six voices. I had a choir of six voices with nice full harmonies. Wrote for cellos, for violins and flutes, and got a proper pianist behind the piano. And I would prefer personally to be on stage to sing with the rest of this cast of the musical. My first musical I wrote was in 1983. We toured the country with that, 1983, 84, and I had nobody less than Anna Neetling-Pool, wonderful
Wow.
diva of the Afrikaans stage, that
Yeah.
helped me on that project. She actually suggested the possibility of a musical, and I said, wow, that has been a dream forever for me. So yes, let's do that. And I could use those guys. I had wonderfully musical people around at the university, of course.
Yeah.
And we then toured the country with Lulurai. Lulurai is a piece of science fiction that was
Yeah.
written by Langenhoven, the guy who also wrote the stem, the Afrikaans anthem of the old days. And he was a wonderful author. It was wonderful to work with these concepts, with these ideas, with the story. And I love language and music enough to marry them, I hope, in a very proper way. But then having this lady around, the Anna Neetling-Pool. And
Yeah.
my boss was nobody less than Chris Lamprecht, who is a famous composer in Afrikaans, especially of choral music. So when I wrote my little compositions, it was like those long things where you have all the scores of everybody written
Yeah.
below one another. And
Yeah.
he would look at that and he'd say, now, what is the cello doing there? Why is it playing an E flat there? You must remember that if
Yeah.
you now are if you now are in this specific place, I'm thinking now of what would that be, a third? It would be It's actually a D sharp. Hey, so
Yeah,
from B, he said,
that's
no, but you are doubling. You're doubling now the third of the chord, and it's
yeah.
never good. You have to find a better bass note, then it'll work. So I was
Sweet.
really in a wonderfully blessed situation for 7 years, where I worked for Pretoria University and but with a group. And then after that, yes, I just stuck to music. Perhaps the biggest gift that I got in my life, apart from this job at Pretoria University, was Krista Steyn. Krista
Mm,
is certainly one of the best pianists that this country has seen.
mm.
She started out in the classical world, and she was part of a very famous classical trio as a youngster of 9 years old, and then
Wow.
went on more to light music in later years and jazz. And I had the privilege of the 50 years that I've now been busy with music. She was with me for 25 years. We toured the world. We
Yes.
visited 25 countries together, performed in 20 of those. And
Wow.
I will never be able to live out all the gratitude I have in me for that wonderful blessing in my life. And since then, I've just been singing. I've been writing, singing, where I like to put together shows, to put
Mm.
a show together where we all know what's going to happen. I've got Shani, your very good friend, Shani Jonker,
Yes.
at the piano most of the time, Susan Mouton on the cello. Susan is the first, she is the principal cellist of the Johannesburg Philharmonic, so I cannot complain. And then I play the guitar better and better the more I try. And
Mm.
we put shows together. We've got a lovely Brill show still going. We started with something on the music of Marie Trudeau of Jacobs Baai. Wonderful music
Mm.
that we include. In this case, we use a flute. A very good friend of mine, Annelie du Plessis-Oberg, is a flautist of the highest order. And then she plays with me and Shani. And then I'm sometimes still blessed to have Kunrad Raal with me as well. He plays for Amanda Strader most of the time now, but he
Yeah.
also sometimes still performs with me. So I'm blessed to be surrounded with wonderful talents. I sing with, I've been doing a Christmas show now. This year is the fifth, in which I'm doing it with a vocal group. They call themselves a little trio. They call themselves Breathe. That
Yeah.
is Sandile and Sizwe and Gabi. And the three of them sing like angels. So every
Mm.
year we do our Christmas program in November with this a cappella outfit. Yes, I have nothing to complain about. I'm very happy, and I make the best of the difficult times that we've had.
Mm. Jannie, in listening to everything that you've said, you started in
That
school.
that would be very difficult. I talk far too much, I know.
Nee, maar ek luister mooi. It's all that oral training that I've had now. It's my ears are like, yup, I'm listening to everything, even the pitch of your voice, and are you using your breathing technique? Is it correct and everything? Not really. Jannie, I wanted to ask you just a few things, pick your brain about creativity and what it means to be professional before we carry on to get to the pandemic
Mm.
and all the stuff that happened there. Um, I want to mention, I mean, you've been in the industry for a very long time, if you've been a singer for a long time. The first time that I came into contact with you was, I think it was 20 years ago, more than that, perhaps even, at the ATKV Liedjiewerk Skole, the ATKV songwriting workshops. For the viewers who don't know about that, in South Africa, Jannie, Krista Steyn and Lucas Marie and Johan van der Walt, you guys presented those workshops, and we went there every year. And I have to tell you that in listening to you now and getting to know you a bit better, also looking at that experience back then, I can absolutely see how you guys value to be organized, to be really good at what you do, to communicate properly, because the learning experience that I had there back then was still to this day is such a high point of my life as a musician. You guys provided such a high standard in the way that you taught all of us, and it was not just the teaching of music. We it felt like I became part of a like a um, like a quality group of people who think about music the same way, and who instilling that in the younger ones. The writing, especially, all of you like value good lyrics, good lyric writing. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for that. I don't know if you guys realize how much that meant to us. And it's like 20 years later, I still remember it so vividly. So I will always treasure
It's
that experience.
fantastic to hear that. I'm very, very grateful that you view it in that way. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, it's so much value for us. So you you were taking lessons in school, and then you left, you stopped that. And I agree with you. If you get too much structure with music education, you kind of forget about your identity as an artist. And I think I agree with you. I think you're lucky to have put that behind you and found your own voice, and also met the right people to work with, people who you were on the same page with, and understanding that certain venues
A very, very, I know it's a very debatable one, that, because what would I
yeah.
have given to actually have had a full training? But yes, I think within my situation, I do agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really an important thing, because to study music and to learn to play music is through mentorship or through university, but that mentorship can replace university to a big extent, and university helps you kind of save time to get forward and meeting your colleagues who you'll be working with in future and so on. There's many advantages to both, I guess. But yeah, so you worked with Krista Stein for a very long time, good pianist. Can you tell us your process of being creative? You spend a lot of time with language and music. How does that work? I would really just like to, if you can just spend a few minutes telling us how you see songwriting, how you view that process. What does it entail? How much do you connect that to your own life and to society? Because you truly are an artist. You know how to tap into society's minds and give them music that means something and that sounds really good. What are your values, I guess, as a songwriter? If you can share that with
Mm.
us.
Well, I just don't believe that I can just sit down and write a song and that'll be good enough. I don't believe it. And I do know that there are people that are more talented than me that might be able to do it. For me, I love language a lot. So when I write the music, I have to respect each and every aspect of language. Of course, you have to really think that you have something to say. Uh,
Mm,
if you want to become a songwriter who writes with an artistic purpose, of
mm,
course, to make money out of music is also a possibility, and it's lovely. I wish I could have made a lot more,
mm,
but I view the artistic side of it too important
oh,
to say, yeah, but don't worry about that. Let's just go on. I cannot work like that. Honestly, I couldn't stick with just a few chords in the beginning from the beginning of my writing.
mm,
I heard too many sounds around me. I heard the Beatles with their wonderfully intricate chordal patterns. I heard classical music. I heard some wonderful psalms and hymns with
mm,
beautiful harmonizations, which would
mm,
respect which would respect language in this
mm.
whole situation. So wow, yeah, it's we need quite a few hours to discuss this,
I know.
but I can say that in the beginning, right in the beginning, I did not trust my gifts as a lyric writer enough.
Mm,
I decided no, I would rather do a setting of a poem to music. Then I know I start at a strong lingual point.
I see.
Language would be good, probably the because I love literature. It would really adhere to to whatever standards would be set for a poem. It would be a poem. It would be well written. It would not just be nonsense that comes from nowhere. So
Mm,
I set my first composition, which I recorded, was
mm,
a setting to music of a poem by A.G. Visser,
mm,
A.G. Visser from Heidelberg, where I was born.
mm,
In our area, he was hailed as a real artist or a real poet of the people of that area.
mm,
And he was looking back at him, he was I think, highly rated at his time. He was not the biggest of all, but he wrote sensible stuff, and he loved language. Clearly,
Mm.
also loved music, because there's a musicality in what he wrote. And the song that I put to music is Rosa Rosarum. Actually, the Latin then would be Rosa Rosarum. That is Rose of the Roses.
I
So
see.
obviously it must be a love song. What
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
But the way that the guy wrote, it was not like la 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 la. That then you'd very soon become bored.
I see.
He was a bit more, he went a bit further than that. And
Mm.
that is also what I've been doing in writing later, after perhaps 2 or 3 years. I thought, okay, perhaps now I can try to start writing my own texts.
Mm.
Uh, I'm actually lying. We started a little bit earlier than that. I was referring to 72. Perhaps by 74, we said, okay, guys, let's
Mm.
write our own texts. We feel comfortable now with the settings to music that we've done,
Mm.
and we started writing our own stuff. So the song that made it to the American Song Festival,
Mm.
me and my two friends wrote the text to that, and I sort of wrote most of the music, but the others also contributed.
Mm.
And if I listen back to that today, I feel proud. We used some proper chords, and I think that's what perhaps made it stand out amongst some of the other stuff of the time. Because let's face it, it is the commercial music that will always make it. But
Yeah.
I think what's important is that you have to believe that there are some people that think about music the way you do.
Mm.
And after 50 years of trying that, I can confirm, yes, I have often bumped into people that would say to me, listen, I know there are lovely music, there are music, wonderful songs, and there's lovely music, but I found a little bit more in what I've heard you doing. And that's obviously what we strive for. We want to
Yeah.
do something that is a little bit extraordinary, that touches the heart a little bit more than
Mm.
what we hear every day.
Mm.
And I'm afraid I still hear a lot of that doesn't touch me, but
Mm.
through the years,
Mm.
always again,
Mm.
in Afrikaans and other languages, something comes that I would say, yes, okay, this really touched me. And
Mm.
I hope that as long as I am still there, as long as I have the opportunities to write, to sing. At the moment, I don't write too much. I love singing too much, and
Mm.
I sing music by my favorite composers. Sing some of my oldest stuff. Sing some of my younger stuff. I did a new album with totally new material 3 years ago, and I still love those songs. They certainly chordally spoken, they are the best that I've done in my life. So I keep on doing that, and
Mm.
I talk too much once
Yeah, no,
again.
you
I
don't.
hope I
You
hope I
don't.
made anything ever
You are.
sense.
I think it's so important for people to hear this because you've done this for such a long time, and the message that everybody who starts out, like even I mean, 20 years ago, the message that we get is, you know what, if you want to make a living out of that, you're going to have to compromise, you're going to have to do that. I remember one time I wanted to go and ask for a record deal somewhere and had a nice session and the music was nice and everything. But then the person said to me, you know what, you're going to have to lose weight, and etc. etc. So I don't mind losing weight if it's going to make me more healthy, but I don't want to have to lose weight, to be appreciated or valued for my music. So that was something that put me off
On the
immediately.
cover of your album.
That's it, verstaan jy? So
Yeah.
now this is why this is so important for people to hear this. If you stick to your guns, if you have your values and your reasons for why you're doing this, there will be a way. A way will be made if you do that. Um, but now, on the other hand, I had a conversation with somebody else. I said to him because he felt like an imposter in the industry because he's not a full-time performer. He has a day job. And then I said to him, well, I can understand that in a way that you will feel like that because where exactly are you a professional then or not? This is a debate. But on the other hand, if you have a following, if there are people out there who appreciate what you do and they feel like they need to go and watch your gigs and they need to hear your music, then that's good enough because we're not just doing this for ourselves and to be really good at what we're doing, which is very important. We're also doing it for an audience, for human beings who decide this touched me or it didn't. So that to me is still a difficult thing to decide on, but I can see both sides. Do it really well, go for it. um, get your audience, or compromise and get a bigger audience and make more money, or get a day job but still do it. It's such a difficult, complex thing to understand for me personally anyway. But on that note,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what do you view, um, or how would you define a professional musician? What in your mind does it mean to be professional? Does it necessarily mean you do it full time, just perform full time? Does it necessarily mean you're really good at
No,
what you do? What is your definition of it? Ek gaan net my hare fix, hoor.
I think I'm afraid they are.
Kyk
It's
hier.
difficult. I mean, it's the first time in my life that I've been in a shower with a lady that is fully dressed and myself. So it is a bit weird.
Ja.
Just sort it out there. Sort it out.
Marissa, wat gaan nie? It'll have to turn into a nice big bolla, I think. Daar sy. It's a afdakkie now. Okay,
Yeah.
let's carry on.
No, there are certainly, there is not just one definition of a professional musician.
Yeah.
Denny Lalouette, the wonderful bassist, is a professional musician because if you put the music in front of him, Krista,
Yeah.
he was one of the few people that could actually write her, read her bass parts, because they were
Wow.
just so intricate, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And but Denny, he would put it in front of Denny, and he reads it like Susan would read the cello part in front of her. So
Wow.
that is a professional musician. Susan is a professional musician. The fact that somebody is outstanding and would have been able to make a living from what he's doing, then I think then he's decided not to be a professional musician in that sense. But there is also just the quality of playing. If he can reach the quality of playing of a Denny Lalouette, then I'm not going to say that he's not a professional musician. He does it professionally. He does, okay, that is also there's also more than one way to look at that. But he plays, he earns a living only from music. That is I think the strict definition of a professional musician. But a guy that just does it so well,
yeah,
you could call that professional as well. But yeah, I think the definition is a bit difficult to define what you want to define.
That's it. And the reason why I'm asking that, Jannie, is now to get to the past almost 2 years during the pandemic. The value of what we do, not just the mental and emotional value that we put out there to society. How is that valued according to live music venues, but also how is it valued financially by the government, for example? There are unions, there are organizations that support the industry, but that's a gray area. So let's skip to the pandemic. When we got the news that there's a lockdown and that everything has to stop. I want us to get back to this topic of value, but let's start there and then we go to that side. Please tell me what your experience was like when you heard the news, lockdown done, everything. What were you busy with at that point in time, and what was the plans for the next few months? If we can just start there.
Right. My first thing with which I was busy was to think about when I would reach the 50 mark, from 50 years of, let's say, I can't say professional, because when I played on the radio in 1971, I played my guitar, I accompanied somebody, I did a little harmony, it was recorded on an album, it was broadcast on the radio. So that's why I say I have been quite seriously busy with music since 71.
Yeah.
But see, that's when you start answering the first question too long, or make your intro too long, it becomes a problem. Okay, normally what I've been doing over the past 30 years would be to do a Christmas series in November and a tour to the Cape in December. I would sometimes tour in Europe, but that would normally be September, October. But in general, that's when I would tour, would be December to the Cape, only
Yeah.
logical place for me to go is to tour down the Cape Coast.
I see.
So when in March or April last year, we heard that the pandemic would reach its sort of summit by September. I
Mm.
said to the lady, "You're a very good friend of mine. I don't want to call her my agent or my manager or anything, just a
Mm.
friend who's been involved and helped me for the past 10 years with
Mm.
everything I do. She does, she is such an all-rounder, and she's like a bulldog. She
Yeah.
tackles something,
Mm.
does it out of
Mm.
love for the arts,
Yeah.
out of caring for people. So I
UP.
said to UP, let's go ahead. She owns the Pioneer
Pioneer
Theatre in
Theatre.
Pretoria. Lovely, lovely little theatre. You see the most wonderful people performing there. It's small, but it's wonderful. It's intimate. I said to her, okay, she helps me with my performances wherever I go.
Mm.
Let's arrange the November Christmas series, a few more gigs in between, but we focus in November on the Christmas series with Breathe, with that lovely a cappella outfit I referred to.
Yes.
And then we go ahead and we arrange a tour for December.
Mm.
We in this particular case, because we do the music of Marie Trudeau living in Jacobs Bay,
Yeah.
on the west coast, we went around that way. We aimed for Jacobs Bay, and then
Yeah.
worked up the coast, down the coast, up the coast, whatever you'd like to see, to the Eastern Cape, towards the Eastern Cape, from there onward. And we would end, the last performance would be as per normal on the 22nd of December.
Mm.
And that's what we did. We arranged in total 35 performances, small performances here and there, bigger, whatever we could get, 35.
Yeah.
And we did all the Christmas performances. We did all the gigs that were arranged for November. Then
Yeah.
we went on our tour. We did all those performances up to a certain point when I think it was first Wellington, where the venue was so small, the people were really scared that it might really not be a very good idea to do. I said, sure. You just leave it. And in the end, we did 30 out of the 35 performances.
Wow.
And so what I'm trying to say is that it was a positive approach.
Yeah.
And we said to ourselves, if a gig is not going to happen, it won't happen. But
Yeah.
if we don't plan anything, then nothing is going to happen. So
That's it.
I think it's a good idea to just be positive and to believe, like I believe at the moment. Yes, the dear Lord will spare me for another 10 years, and I will hopefully retain my voice. I will become a little bit better on the guitar, and I will always be surrounded with extremely good musicians. And we will think up a new tour. We will have something new. I must at some stage still do the music of Christa Steyn.
Yeah.
It has been done here and there, but I think I owe it to my legacy with Christa to go and do a full out Christa Steyn performance at some stage, but on a high level. I don't want to do it with a small setup. She deserves a symphony orchestra, and it's not just going to happen. The money is it's actually unthinkable what it will cost. But I owe myself that. I owe myself a program about the music of my late friend Louis van Rensburg. We passed away only 3 months after Christa in the same year, in 2012. He wrote the wonderful Forsarnoy Bantam Sur Flenny Snara. He wrote it many years ago. He wrote it before I met him in 1979. He had already written it. So he has a legacy of music that he wrote for big films. He wrote for a lot of things, but he has written some wonderfully intense songs as well. And he worked with Vanus Rautenbach, the wonderful, Afrikaans icon, whose love for the language and whose gift for the language was such that when he wrote lyrics, they were of the highest order. So yes, they are other things that I will just keep on believing that I must do it, and that I will do it. And at some stage, it comes to an end. So be it. It came to an end, and 50 years already might have been enough. I hope that I will have many more. but I cannot complain of what lies behind me, and I look forward to what might lie in front of me.
Wow. It's wonderful to hear somebody with a positive outlook on it. And I think most people struggled in the beginning because we felt like things are cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. But it's more a question of, you know what, just carry on. It's just, if it gets postponed, then it's
Yeah,
postponed. Just carry on, do your thing.
yeah,
Ja, gaan net voort.
yeah. Well, this year I had more performances cancelled this year than I did last year, and
Wow.
I accepted
Jo,
each of the cancellations, and
ja.
I think that I own a bed and breakfast, by the way, the best in Melville,
Okay.
Agterplaas
Waar is dit?
guest house.
Agterplaas?
People must
Okay.
please come and support us.
Ja.
When you go to just look at Agterplaas and you'll find it. Just please book directly on our website, else we're going to have to pay booking.com. I don't know what amount of the what percentage. It's unbelievable. But even if you book through booking.com, just look up Agterplaas, a lovely guest house. But that is where we really got to hide it, because I have 9 people working for me full time, and when we don't do a gig, then Shani goes on and she teaches. Susan goes on and teaches.
Ja.
Annelie goes on and she teaches. So these people, they have their careers and they can go here. They also have their problems of many sorts.
Ja.
But with the guest house, it's different. I have full-time people there. So the hiding that we got was huge. But I cannot omit to say that by the grace of God, by a miracle, I did not close down on the 31st of May last year.
Wow.
When I should have closed down, because it was impossible.
Wow.
In human terms, impossible to go on. But the dear Lord looked after me once again.
Wow. Awesome. That's wonderful. Yes, see, Jannie, I want to ask you the following question regarding the pandemic during this time. Did you learn any new skills, new way of thinking, new way of doing things over the past year and a half? Things that you literally found to be a massive challenge to learn, and that you're now happy that you learned?
Well, at least I can do a Zoom meeting with you.
Ja, ek weet, in die badkamer.
I've done Skyping for many
Okay.
years, but the
Okay.
Zoom meeting is something nice and new.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have to lie to you if I say that I learned something profound, apart from perhaps now realizing more and more how dependent we are on the grace of God. How we there's the old, I don't know how often it's used in English, but in Afrikaans we use the Latin phrase Deo volente, which means with God willing, dear fear, or DP. And I've started doing that in bold since that came. So I think my dependence on the dear Lord, as I had a new insight on that, and that we cannot just view things as nothing is a given. Nothing is a given. Who said that I would be alive now? I think I came to terms in March, April, May last year with the fact that I might just as well be one of those people that have to go. And how do I know that it will not still happen? But I think I do believe that also the emphasis on the positive approach, because I've been very positive. I mean, the fact that I left the legal field for music without any promises from earthly beings, it worked. A positive approach, and it was certainly highlighted. I believe firmer, but I also see, I think, clearer how much you are actually dependent not on yourself so much. You cannot do that always. It comes from above for me.
I can identify with that, especially regarding feeling a renewed thankfulness for this gift that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's almost like for the first time in a long time, I thought, now I have to do something. You have to do this, because you're going to lose everything. It's not like I had this highly successful career as a performer or anything, but it was all of a sudden as if I had to tell myself, leave this thinking of trying to be perfect and having everything excellent. Just do it and see where it goes. Rather just do something than criticize yourself too much and not do anything, or have all kinds of weird preconceived ideas or whatever. Just do it and see what happens. So it's literally, for me, my mind shift has gone from putting pressure on myself to get successful into this thing, and being ambitious, to do this for the love of it. Go back to the reason why you started doing it. Just start creating again. Start over and enjoy it more than anything, and be thankful for it. And that was literally because of that reason. You can die tomorrow. You cannot be here maybe over 3 weeks. You're not here anymore. What did you do with your life? So it almost feels like such a waste of energy to stress too much about things. Yeah, anyway, I think I've made my point. um, yeah, and I want to ask you something else about organizations and unions and so on, because the government had their grants that they were giving out, and I want to understand a bit better who qualified for those grants and who didn't, and why. Those are the type of questions that I have. I don't know what your experience was with that. Did you apply for grants? Yeah, if you can tell me more about that.
Yeah, I applied for a few, and I got two.
Okay.
But I mean, it doesn't compare at all with what one lost in terms of money last year. It didn't at all
Yeah.
match. But I'm not complaining. I've been looked after, and
Okay.
I really think that terrible things happened. It becomes more and more clear now that we hear the news and we see people being taken to court and so on. I just decided at the time, listen, I'm not going to waste my time on filling out 1,000 forms. I think I've filled out 4 or 5, and UAP, as always, assisted me and helped me a lot to make it possible to get some money. And at the guest house, we did get that grant where some of the lost income to our staff was remunerated, and I'm very grateful for that. That helped us a little bit. But I don't know. I'm just not a form person. Let me tell you a lovely little story. I was prosecuting in 1978 at the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. But I went out to Orlando court, where I was the prosecutor, and I went with a combi. And let's say in the middle, what do you call that sort of center court of the magistrates court? It's just a place where all the combis would park and so on. It was so full that now the court ordinance would drive the combi, and there would be some magistrates, and there would be an interpreter, and there'd be all sorts would be in this thing, and we all drive out now in one. Each of the outside courts had their own combi, and the guy driving this thing, he was so almost hit by another combi in this courtyard kind of thing. And he stuck out his neck out of the, and I'm going to say it in Afrikaans like he did, and we'll translate it afterwards for those that don't know. Say, ek sal jou net so 'n dik pak vormslat invul. That is the way he threatened the guy. So he threatened by saying that he will force him to fill out a pile of forms. And that is how I feel about forms. So
it sounds like
be it online, be it physical. I hate forms, and I actually now when I get to I was in Stellenbosch, and that's the first time that somebody really fell for it. I tell the lady, the receptionist there, when she asked me to fill in a form, I said, I'm so sorry, but I carry a doctor's certificate precluding me totally from filling in forms. Can you believe? For a moment, but then of course I still had to put it in. And then when I get to the place where they ask about allergies, I would always fill out form.
Okay. Yes, I hear you, But this is an important topic because throughout most of the interviews we talked about this, saying that administration for us is really difficult. It's as if
It's
the
not easy for an artist.
it's not.
And
So
then and then we know that, unfortunately, in this country,
yeah, yeah,
there's just too much of that kind of thing where we decide from the beginning, listen, I think I'm not going to get anything. Once again, just being positive and do one or two of the forms and hope something comes in. Something
yeah,
did come in. I must give them that. But it
yeah.
was like perhaps I got the money that I would get out of two reasonable gigs.
I see.
That was for the full duration of 2020.
Yes, this erg. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but yes, see, but this is perhaps something that we can start working on is to make communication and correspondence a bit more tuned into our way of communicating and understanding things because it's very
Mm.
corporate. All the organizations are corporate, and it should
It's not.
be, but
It
this,
hasn't changed through centuries, my dear.
no,
Please, just forget about that. Just
okay,
let's just live without the extra money that we get through these people that
I,
decide that
that's a
they're going to
wise,
bow down to our level and give us a few cents. Let's forget about
that's
that. Just live your life and go on.
yeah, that's a wise, that's actually wise advice because, I'm still young and energetic. I want to fix it. I want to change it. Maybe we need change, means
I fix a
activism.
lot of other things. I only go for fixing fixable things.
Dis waar, dis die, my pa sê altyd dit vir my. Dat
Is it?
pick your fights. Pick your fights. Moenie die een vat wat jy
Yeah.
weet jy gaan nie, ja. Anyway.
Mm.
But yeah, so at least we know that all of us kind of, most of us have the same experience, has had the same experience and the same kind of frustrations. But it boils down to staying positive, um, carrying on, working, do your thing, and don't waste your time with things that will not serve you. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Jannie,
And that will make you so unhappy.
ja, moeg. Nee, nee, ons wil nie moeg wees
Okay.
nie. Jannie, thank you so much for joining the show.
What a pleasure.
I want to ask you just one more question. I asked this to everybody. Why did you agree to join this project? What is the value that you see that this will bring to the industry or people going through this experience? Also to young people who are looking at this, who are considering going into a career in the music industry. Yeah, what do you think will this
Well, of
contribute?
course, one does hope that, based on the years and years of experience, that there might have been something that I shared that might make some sense to somebody, and that might make enough sense to try and actually, uh, well, use that.
Mm,
If it is at all appropriate, I'd be very grateful,
mm.
and I'm very honored by having been asked by yourself. I feel so cool. You cannot believe it.
Maar jy is cool. Hier's net cool mense op hierdie show. Dis hoekom ek jou invite het. Nee, ek joke, nee.
Dierbaar van jou.
Ag, dankie.
Sê liefde vir jou mense daar.
Dis reg, ek sal vir hulle sê.
And please, everybody watching, listening, I'm performing my show in the George Arts Theatre on, I think the 18th or 19th of December. It is my commemoration of 50 years of making music. So what I do is I sing the songs of my friends, myself and my friends that I cooperated with. And I've got Shani and Susan, wonderful pianist, outstanding cellist, with me on stage. I play the guitar, and we sing a nice program of music that I hope really touches the heart.
We will most certainly be there, and you are most certainly welcome to stay over here again. Nee, julle het mos bly plek hierso.
You'd be very grateful, yes.
Sommer daar op die sitkamerbank. Ons het nie nog plek nie, ek's jammer. Ons maar vir jou 'n matrasie maak daar langs die kaggel, weet jy. And also the KykNet program that's currently running every Wednesday evening.
Okay, I have to tell people.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, every Wednesday evening. It started last night, but it is being rebroadcast at 3 o'clock on Sunday and at 8 o'clock on Monday. and it's every week. It's like that. It's a 13. It's a series of 13 episodes, and it all has to do with my career of 50 years. The previous one was yesterday, and it goes on till the 22nd of December, and it's on it's called KykNet No, which is DSTV channel 146. And I think it makes for very nice viewing. You will see our Jacques Brel program. You will see some interesting things, some documentaries, some brand new shows. We really have quite a conglomerate of interesting things in the series of 13. Wow. It's called A Liedjie vir Jou. It is called A Liedjie vir Jou. It's a song that I wrote in 1978, which became quite well known. I became known for it. And it's being covered by young people up to today.
Ek wens dat ek my liedjie vir jou kon sing. That one?
That
Even
one.
I know it. Ek's al 40 jaar oud. Jannie, so congratulations with that, with your 50 years in the industry. It's like a massive, massive accomplishment. So yeah, and thank you for your music. We all know your music. My child knows your music, so it's timeless, beautiful, professional, high standard quality music. So thank you for that.
Very kind, and all the best to you. Hope to see you soon.
Yep.
And your folks.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Jannie. Lekker dag.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.